أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It is officially 7:05 Eastern Standard Time. I'd love to get started by getting to know who's in the room with us today. So if you take a minute just to drop a line in the chat, where are you from? What position do you hold? What city are you from? That would be really awesome to see where we're all coming from today. I'm personally actually in Mountain Standard Time, so I'm not in the East Coast. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and I am a principal of an online school. So it'd be really cool to see where everybody else is coming from today. Oh, cool. From Abroad Elementary in Ottawa, Canada. Thank you, Brother Mohammed. And are you a principal or teacher, administrator? Principal. Awesome. Thank you for that. Iram, Assalamu alaikum. You are principal of Manat Academy in Kingston, Ontario. Thank you. Welcome. Brother Hamid from Edmonton and Al Farouk Islamic School admin. Huda Khurshid from Omar bin Khattab Academy in Edmonton. Say salam to Mr. Bush. I think you guys are at the same school there. Hamid Patel, teacher at ICNA Edmonton. Awesome. So we've got a little bit of Alberta and a little bit of Ontario going on here. Camilla from Hamilton Downtown Islamic School, school coordinator. Salam, Camilla. Aisa from Woodstock, Ontario. Salam, Aisa. And we've got a manager from Terra Quran School. Salam. Thank you, Bushra. And oh, that's hilarious today. Yes, we were on a lengthy conversation, Mr. Bush. It's very, very nice to connect with him again. And then we've got, I don't know what MNN stands for, Masjid in Mississauga, volunteer. This is awesome. We've got all sorts of people here today, and it all makes sense that you guys are joining this session. So I'm hoping that this will be a very fruitful session for everyone, inshallah. A kindergarten teacher at Menard Academy from Kingston. That is awesome. This is great. Thank you so much for everyone for participating in this quick get to know you. As I mentioned, I'm a principal of an online school. I used to work extensively for 10, 11 years at a different school here in Calgary, Alberta. And due to my children, I've got two little kids. I've had to move online so that I'm able to support them and support my family. So alhamdulillah. I'm just going to start off with a dua. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Awesome. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm so happy and I'm honored to be your moderator today for us to come together in what is an important and timely webinar named Security Measures and Grant Access for Masajid and Islamic Schools. Like I said, I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, and I myself have worked in a school where it was connected to a masjid, and it has been something that has really struck home for me in multiple ways, right? With the San Diego event that occurred, we're gathering at a very difficult time and moment for all of our communities. Many of us still processing what happened in San Diego. It was very heartbreaking. Like I said, it hit a little bit too close for home for me. I personally have some family members that live in San Diego, and every single one of them knew, whether it was Brother Amin, Brother Nadir, or Ammu Mansour, right? Because he was actually a family friend of my family. May Allah have rahmah on all of their souls, and may Allah grant all of their families and loved ones the patience and strength to get through and the healing that everyone needs to get through this difficult time. May Allah grant them the highest ranks of Jannah, and to all of those affected, like I said, to give them the healing and the patience and strength. It's been very, very difficult in all of our communities, which is why we really do need something like this session today to help us. We create all of these different emergency response procedures at our schools to the best of our knowledge and ability, but to have a dedicated webinar where we're all learning from experts in the field is just something that I feel is paramount. And I'm so happy that ISAC was able to bring this for our leaders today, and those of us that are working in all of the different capacities at Islamic School. I'd like to actually take a moment, if everyone could just make a dua for the families, a dua for the passed on, and to say Surah Al-Fatiha for their souls. Thank you very much. So that was something that took place in San Diego in the States. But here in Canada, it almost feels like it wasn't too long ago that we had the London family incident that occurred. It's still fresh and we carry it in our memory. And as we approach the June 6th remembrance, we are reminded that Islamophobia is not distant from us. Their loss changed our country, and it strengthened our collective commitment to ensuring that our schools and our masajid and our community spaces will remain safe with dignity and belonging, inshallah. Tonight's webinar is not about fear. It is about creating that responsibility and holding that responsibility that we all have in whatever capacity may be. It is about taking thoughtful and practical steps to protect our communities that have been entrusted to us with that amana. It is about building relationships and strengthening systems and understanding available supports, grants, and having plans in place that are all a part of fulfilling that trust. We are grateful to have experts with us this evening who will help guide us through this conversation and equip us with practical next steps. Alhamdulillah. This webinar has been hosted, like I said, by the Islamic Schools Association of Canada, also known as ISAC, and is organized in collaboration with remarkable groups of partner organizations. We have Red Tree Strategic Consulting, Justice for All Canada, Sound Vision Canada, and Toronto Muslims. Allow me to start by briefly introducing ISAC and the work that we do. ISAC aspires to promote, advance, and develop Islamic schools across Canada by grounding our efforts in current and emerging research on Islamic education. Our vision is centered in fostering God-centered education inspired by the Islamic worldview. We share the mission of Islamic schools across the country to help nurture the next generation of Muslim students as model Canadian citizens that will contribute meaningfully to both the country, the global ummah, and inshallah for their akhirah. With a team of educational experts, ISAC has been dedicated to building networks between Islamic schools and organizations all across Canada and even the US. We share resources, offer educational conferences, retreats, professional development workshops, and create guides designed to strengthen Islamic pedagogy and teaching practices that is rooted in our faith. Additionally, ISAC supports Islamic school communities across Canada in offering webinars like these, honing in our topics of critical importance. We are honored to partner with the incredible organizations to address these vital issues. And each organization here tonight brings invaluable expertise. Red Tree Strategic Consulting specializes in consulting organizations in creating robust policies and accessing funding opportunities. Funding opportunities which are so hard to apply for. So it's great to have them here with us today to help us in that aspect. Justice for All Canada is a leading Canadian non-for-profit human rights advocacy organization. They advocate for persecuted Muslims and Indigenous communities, including other religious and ethnic minorities that are also facing oppression. Their work challenges state-level Islamophobia, discrimination, and genocidal crimes on a global scale. With consultative status at the United Nations and a registration under Lobbyists Canada, Justice for All Canada fights to save lives and prevents genocide through education, community mobilization, public policy, and advocacy. Sound Vision Canada is also here with us today. They too are a non-for-profit organization committed to raising the standards of quality in Muslim community through the delivery of professional development, training, and skill building resources. And last but not least, Toronto Muslims is a platform fostering unity and collaboration within the Muslim community. Thank you for all of you for joining ISAC and for partnering with us so that we are able to provide such webinars for all of our community. For the event today, we're going to run from now until about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have two featured presentations from two esteemed panelists, each with a wealth of knowledge and experience in their respective areas. Throughout the webinar, we're going to be using the Zoom chat to populate your questions, as there will be some time at the end of each separate session to address any of these questions. And now let me introduce our first speaker. I am honored to introduce Brother Yunus Imam, who will be speaking about emergency lockdown and evacuation procedures, and introducing a practical framework for developing a layered security approach through the 3 lines of defense. His session will help schools and community organizations think intentionally about prevention, response, and creating systems that strengthen safety and readiness before an emergency even ever occurs. Brother Yunus is an emergency management and resilience professional with experience in emergency preparedness, crisis response, business continuity, and organizational safety planning. He holds a master's degree in disaster and emergency management and has worked across areas related to planning, response readiness, and continuity strategies. He is currently doing his PhD in disaster and emergencies management, specializing in mosque security strategies. He has also contributed to emergency management initiatives and training within the community and institutional settings. Without further ado, Brother Yunus, over to you.
Hey, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Just a warning for today. Part of our training and drills, we actually like to do more active shooter preparedness where we get individuals to, actually practice disarming firearms, both pistol and rifle. So today, I am actually going to, at some point in the middle of this presentation, I'm going to take this out. This is a Sig Sauer P226. And this is an airsoft firearm, but we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration with it. It'll be about 30 seconds, just so nobody is, alarmed by me having a pistol. Hang on. Anyways, all right, let's get to our presentation. I am going to share my screen, and we will get started. Can you guys please confirm that you guys can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So our team likes to begin with this kind of a specific passage from the Battle of Uhud, right? Musab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu was designated by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be the flag bearer during the Battle of Uhud. And during the confusion after the archers abandoned their post, many of the Quraysh were trying to assassinate him. So Musab ibn Umair created a diversion and he charged into the Quraysh. Because of this, many of the Quraysh basically started attacking him instead. And even though they chopped off both of his hands, he kept repositioning the flag in his other arm, and then he would hold it between his arms, right? And eventually he was killed by a spear. He was born into a life of a lot of privilege, and he sacrificed so much of it to become Muslim. And the cloth that they buried him with wasn't large enough to cover his body, right? So it's very important that we take these examples from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, right, in self-sacrifice. And obviously, as we saw in San Diego, there were 3 brothers who put that really into practice. Right, so our team, basically, we are all emergency, security, law enforcement, and military professionals. And we provide all this free training to mosques. We've been doing it for 7 years since the New Zealand shooting. This will be the 246th training that we deliver. Today's presentation is a little bit modified, specifically for what ISAC requested, right? And so it'll be more around schools, but it basically takes a lot of similar things from our events training, right? So something that you need to understand, right, is whenever we're conducting whenever we are trying to be safe around ourselves, we need to think of safety in the same way that we think of when we're driving a car. When we're driving a car, we have our seatbelt on, we are checking our blind spots. We don't expect to have a car crash, but we always take the necessary precautions. So, how many exits are in your room? How many exits are in the school? How many weapons are around you? Guess what? Every single thing that is around you can be used as a weapon, right? In the case of an emergency. How long will police take to get here? When the San Diego shooters left the mother's house with 3 firearms, the mother actually dialed 911 at around 9:42 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the police were basically searching for the shooters for many hours. Actually, they were searching in both the nearby mall and also they were searching in the nearby school affiliated to one of the shooters. When the mosque was attacked, the police were not there. They weren't expecting a mosque to be attacked, right? However, they did arrive in 4 minutes. 4 minutes is a best case scenario. In the city of Toronto, it takes roughly about 12 to 13 minutes on average for police to respond at a priority one call. That means somebody's dying, right? So understand in that 12 to 13 minute time span, maybe 20 minutes if it's a busy day, Muslim organizations need to understand that they can do several things to improve their safety, right? So this would be our in person. We'd be doing an active shooter drill. We'd be carrying people around, carrying people out, and stuff. So we won't be doing that today, right? This is a pig's head that was found outside the Quebec City Mosque in the 2 or 3 weeks prior to the attack. July 2016. My apologies. Right, and this mosque unfortunately had several warning incidences. The actual shooter in question had visited the mosque twice beforehand and was arguing with the imam. Right, so there's often there often are warning signs. So if there are warning signs like this, serious occurrences, these do need to be reported not just to the police, but it needs to also be reported to all of your Muslim civil society organizations, groups like NCCM, Muslim Association of Canada, basically any formal body, because, threats like this, it needs to be taken very seriously. Even if there's nothing going on, a report and the data is going to be recorded. Right. So I actually when we talk about the 3 lines of defense model, I actually really like to talk about, the Donald Trump shooting a couple of years ago. And because it's a really good example where you can see everything, especially because so much of it was on video, how several different layers of defense can be initiated, right? So you would have something like your low visibility elements. So they have people who are body protection, the guys in the Secret Service with the suit and ties and the earplugs, right? You have your high visibility elements. So these would sometimes be called a counter assault team. So these are guys with tactical vests, AR-15s, and lots of outside equipment, right? You have very close to the president, you have the body protection team. So this is who you see in the movies, right, with the suits, right? And then oftentimes you will have an overwatch team, things like snipers, right? Now, obviously, we're not going to take all of these things from the Secret Service. We're not going to implement all of these things, but it is really useful to see how they initiate different layers of defense, right? Just like Shoppers Drug Mart would, right? So in the San Diego shooting, there are several elements that you can look at that the mosque had in place and the mosque and the school had in place that were incredibly, they displayed, there was actually quite a high level of preparedness and several things went right in order for it only to be, subhanAllah, only 3 people passed away and not 140 children, right? The mosque had fencing around. If you go on Google Maps, look at the mosque right now, you will see that there is fencing all around that mosque, right? There was a guard who was well-trained, obviously, very highly motivated, right? I don't know of many security guards from the different security guard companies who would do all the actions that Brother Amin Abdullah did, right? And even when he was shot, he still called in on radio to initiate lockdown, right? Then you have these dedicated community members who also basically rushed in and did everything they could to distract the shooter, right? You have the fact that the security guard, when he radioed in, somebody else on the other line answered. That indicates that this school was actively using radios on a daily basis, and they had codes and they understood what the procedure was, right? They obviously had a lockdown procedure that they initiated, right? And they had an evacuation that they did, right? And as you can see, right, they did an evacuation with the police help, and you can see a number of these elements in this picture on the top, right? You can see the fencing, you can see all the children being let out by the teachers, and now the police are there too, right? The police response, right? It was actually very quick, but at the end of the day, even the quickest police response is not going to be fast enough, right? Because a lot of damage can be done in even 2 or 3 minutes, right? When we do our lockdown trainings in school, right? We actually just recently did one at Madaniya Academy, and there's a couple of things we talk about, right? When you're doing a hold and secure, right? All of the teachers need to gather their students in areas where they cannot be seen. They need to make no noise, turn off the lights, keep your cell phones on silent, right? And provide as much. Oh, hang on a second. 1 second, guys. Okay. So, keep your phones on silent, right? And make as little noise as possible. Take as many objects as you can and initiate a barricade on the doors, right? All of these things are there to create as many barriers as possible for the shooter. You do not open, no matter what happens, you don't open that door, because what will happen is that oftentimes, like at Virginia Tech, a shooter will actually pretend to be police. They'll actually say, "Oh, open up, it's the police, you're safe now," something like that, right? Something to trick you to, open the door, right? And that's obviously how they get access, right? In this case in San Diego, all the staff knew exactly what to do. They locked down, they did not open the doors under any circumstances. What will happen is that the police will eventually open the doors themselves, either through smashing through them or they'll get the keys from the mosque staff, right? So we need to think about different layers of defense, right? So like obviously in San Diego, that's a really good demonstration of it. At a more basic everyday level, you have Shoppers Drug Mart, right? Shoppers Drug Mart actually caters so much of its, infrastructure towards security. So if you notice, there is so many windows at the front of a Shoppers Drug Mart. That's because it allows staff to view anybody coming in and make observation on all of them. And in addition, individuals who are coming into Shoppers Drug Mart with malicious intentions, they basically they always think that they're being watched. So then they're basically not going to be less likely to commit crime, right? Of course, Shoppers Drug Mart also has cameras. Then Shoppers Drug Mart also has a front desk. Every time you walk in there, there's somebody saying hello at the front desk. That's not just there as a greeting system. That's actually there for security, because they're there to basically just see if there's anybody who's suspicious. You will see the same thing at most banks, where you have a universal banker at the front, right? And you can even go another level to this, where if you have security guards or somebody at the door, that person can be at the door and then close off access. So if they see somebody suspicious coming towards the door, you can basically lock the doors and initiate a lockdown very quickly. That way, you've basically prevented a lot of harm, and the shooter will have to do a lot more work to get into the building, at which time, by that time, police will have already made it in. Right. So what are your options, right? There's so many different things that you can do, right? Conflict de-escalation is one thing, right? So this is not really if there's an active situation. This is more if somebody's just aggressive, right? So asking questions, just keeping them talking as long as possible. It's always good to have 3 people with you at the same time. So we like a rule of 3. So 3 individuals basically talking to the person. One person's in charge of talking. The other person is maybe taking notes or even recording if needed. And the other person is ready to call 911. Right? Section 34 of the Canadian Criminal Code allows you to do whatever is necessary to stop a threat. If that means you pick up a chair and start fighting somebody with a knife, that's okay. Right? You're even allowed to put them under restraint, tackle them to the ground, and Section 494 gives you the rights to citizens arrest. So you can actually arrest them and escort them off premises as long as you call police as soon as the situation has stabilized a bit. Right? The studies in disaster management show that during an incident, the people who are on site, called the zero responders, they are the most effective in reducing harm. Right? So that's going to be you. Right? It might be you one day, right? Because unfortunately, recently I was, uh, I was handling an emergency at somewhere where I go very frequently, right? And the security there, even though they were only a very, very short way away, took over 5 to 10 minutes to get there, and it's only a 30-second walk, right? And that's in a building that I know very well. Right. So we're not really going to cover the conflict de-escalation too much, but I will go over it just briefly, right? There are many Dawa organizations that unfortunately have to engage in this all the time because, there's a lot of aggressive people out there. So they focus on listening, customer service, having a minimum of 3 people, right? And a really good example of this is the story of Richard McKinney, a former U.S. Marine who decided that he really hated Muslims. And so he actually built a bomb to go and blow up the mosque, I believe in Indiana, in Muncie, Indiana. And what happened is that the Muslim community was so kind to him that he was expecting to, oh yeah, get tortured or whatever, like, get captured and tortured, right? But they actually started offering him a lot of biryani and stuff, and he really enjoyed it. And so then what happened is that over 7 months, he became very friendly with them. And then he actually embraced Islam, and now he is the president of the masjid, and he does dawah across the United States. The best way to secure our mosques is not just through gates, guns, and guards, right? That's obviously going to all work, right? But we have to understand that this shouldn't change how we practice as Muslims, because oftentimes the best security for Muslims is saying salam to one another. That's why we call it the Salam Project, right? We still want to be opening and inviting, and this is going to be the best way to do it, right? So we just want to understand, like I said with the car example, right? You're not expecting to get into a car crash every day, but you do put on your seatbelts. You are checking your blind spots. You have the airbags working, right? These are all mitigation measures that you put in your head, right? So, this is a very interesting chart made by Jeff Cooper from the United States military, right? And he talks about the different stages of awareness, right? Where most people are completely relaxed, but just being in that yellow zone of paying attention to your surroundings is important. If you go into a mall, do you know where the nearest bathroom is? Do you know where front desk is? Do you know where the nearest exit for the mall is in case there is an emergency? You're not expecting something bad to happen, but you're just understanding, you're aware of your surroundings, right? And this goes further on, like how can we predict somebody's behavior, right? People will have body language cues. They'll have, tells. There's different psychological things that they do, which will make you think, oh, that person might be suspicious. For example, somebody coming in and taking pictures of the different security cameras, right? Somebody getting aggressive, or they're coming multiple times, which is something that happens in a lot of dawah booths, unfortunately, right? And that is the lead up to an attack, right? So there's a couple of reporting strategies that we really like to do, right? If you want to set up your own reporting system, it's actually pretty simple, right? So you can use messaging applications like WhatsApp, Signal, or there's another one called SimpleX, which is much more secure, right? Unfortunately, Signal and WhatsApp is heavily compromised by different governments, right? So these chats can actually act as an incident log, right? If you see something suspicious, you can click in the 5 Ws: who, what, when, where, why, and then how. And then you have timestamps, right, of what was this individual, what did he do, what times did he come, and provide all their details like clothes, height, shoes, whether they had tattoo, beard, skin color, everything, right? These are things that you can all log in, exact details of what they say. The more details, better. Actually, this can also be very useful when you're interacting with the police, right? The New Zealand shooter, right? They actually came into the mosque and they used a drone to surveil the mosque. And they also came into the mosque 3 times beforehand, wearing shalwar kameez, and they were pretending to pray, and they basically learned everything they could about the mosque. That was before they decided to do the attack, right? Same thing with there was a recent stabbing in France, right, where they basically apparently he knew, like, he had known about this mosque, right? And so he came at a time after Fajr prayer, but before Jummah prayer, and only the mosque cleaner was there. And so he basically told the guy he was interested in Islam, and so he started pretending to pray, right? And then he basically used that opportunity, took out a knife, and stabbed the guy multiple times. His body was only found later at Jummah time, right? Another couple things, right, is during during the bigger events, right, just having different communication protocols is important. When it gets very loud, hand signals communicate a lot. There are there obviously, there is a perception that, you use very complex different complex codes and stuff, right, for an emergency, right? So, for example, I know a couple of schools use codes like, oh, time for yoga for there being a threat, right? However, a lot of times people might not understand it. So, oftentimes, it's best to just use simple English communications, something like an active shooter alert that you call over radio or the PSA, right? So, these things that can be used to call for an emergency and just use simple English because it's just easier to understand, right? There may be some nuance to it when, for example, it's a missing child and you suspect it might be malicious activity, right? So these are just a couple of things you want to think about, right? That ends. So sorry, there's a crowd crush thing, but we don't actually have time for that, right? So uh, one thing is site auditing, right? So sorry, Sister Nasma, how are we doing on time? Are you okay?
Yeah, it's only 7:35.
Okay.
And so you've only been talking for about 20 minutes. I think you
Okay.
have another 20 minutes to go.
Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, we can talk about the crowd crushing, right? So, so one thing is that this might not seem like a big issue until you're in an actual emergency, and then you see that everybody's trying to exit out of the same exits, and everybody's crushing together, right? So it's important to have also kind of a crowd management strategy. Understanding opening additional exits is very important to get as many people out as possible, right? And so this can be a very big trigger point during, for example, during Jummah time when everybody's picking up their shoes, leaving, right? There's so many people coming in and, crowds turn to jelly, right? So this can actually lead to a lot of injury, right? So one thing that we do is we also do a site review, right? So we look at what are the vulnerabilities, what are the strengths of a particular site, and what are the areas where we could easily fix some things, right? So for example, many mosques, unfortunately, they actually put like a lot of storage in cardboard boxes near emergency exits because it's a free space. But guess what? Those cardboard boxes and different items they're actually going to be may cause the death of somebody because you're not able to evacuate enough people out. So you have to keep the emergency exits clear. You can run that check anytime you want. I mean, before Jummah time is a really good time because people are already like, people will use that opportunity if they come a little bit early, and you can do that, right? So I finished my I finished my presentation. I just wanted to do a little bit of a so we do a gun disarming drill when we do this stuff in person, right? So I just want you to have a understanding of this, right? Um, when we talk about disarming a shooter, right? This is obviously, this is the last resort. There's like you have no other option, right?
Brother
Um,
Eunice, it's kind of hard to
oh, it's
see
a
the
blurry.
gun
Okay, hang
with
on.
the
Let me
phone.
disable the blur. Hang on 1 second here.
If you're okay to do that, just go
Yeah, yeah,
ahead.
yeah, no problem. Okay, you can see this in HD. Okay, great. Okay, so one of the things is that we talk about the run, hide, defend methodology, right? So this is something that a lot of police units talk about in this country, right? So evacuate, know where your exits are, barricade, lock everything down, right? And uh, then if there is no other option, you have to fight back, right? So just one thing about gun disarming, right? If I'm gripping, if I'm this is the bad guy's gun. If I'm holding it like this, if I'm trying to grab the arm or whatever, the guy can still, he can still move the gun around, right? Actually, hang on. Let's hope nobody gets upset with this, right? So this will still go off, right? But if I grip the gun itself, right, all of a sudden I have more control over the gun than the bad guy does. I have more leverage over it. In fact, it's so bad that people in the military, what they do is that they actually have a knife at the center of their body, usually on their kit. And because they didn't realize that if somebody grabs their gun when when they're engaged in combat, right, it's better to take out the knife and start stabbing the person because you've already lost the gun, right? And these are trained professionals. These are, your special forces like Green Beret, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, right? So that's generally what they do. They actually keep a knife on themselves, right? Uh, so, uh, that's just one last thing I want to talk about. There's also just the last thing, which is stop the bleed. If you see somebody bleeding, if you see somebody with knife wounds or gunshot wounds, All you need to know is take a cloth and apply pressure. Stop the bleeding as much as possible. There are many shootings in the United States that have occurred, and unfortunately, people have bled out for no reason other than the fact that people are too scared that, oh, I don't know first aid, right? You don't need to know first aid to save somebody's life sometimes. Just take a cloth, apply pressure if it's a big wound like that, right? And that can save a lot of people's lives. So if you would like to get more training on that, we're not first aid people, right? We can point you in the direction of stop the bleed programs and and get you guys discounts on group first aid courses, right? MNN Mosque actually has done some really good first aid stuff under the Canadian Red Cross in the last couple of years. So we'd be happy to get you guys in touch with that. But yeah, that was just the final thing. I have a couple minutes for questions. I have to go back to my own class.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brother Yunus. That was very, very helpful. And there's already people in the chat that are saying that this is one of the best webinars they've attended. Jazakallah khair. I have some questions if you guys don't have questions, but I'm going to give you a minute. Either unmute your mic and ask your question or go ahead and put the questions in the chat. Is there a cost to have Salam Project to get folks trained?
None, Sister Aisha. We don't have any costs. We've done so. Salam Project was actually started by a brother in who is in. Oh, I can't say this on a recording, but he works for the police, right? And it was his idea, and he brought together a lot of people from military and law enforcement. He brought myself, he brought somebody from urban planning, right? So we have just a group of us, and we basically provide this service for free. We've been doing training at mosques for the last 7 years since the New Zealand shooting. We were obviously that was like such a big event, and we were like, we need to do the best that we can, right, with the time that we have. So we provide it all for free. We've done 246 trainings in the last 7 years.
Well, and do you do training out in Alberta?
Yes, we've done a couple in Alberta, and we've done on most of the provinces in Canada now.
Oh, mashallah, mashallah. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Is there contact info for Salam Project that you can share?
Sure, I'll throw it in. I'm just gonna provide my email, but we are setting up an actual formal email account, and yeah, and the BC Muslim Association is helping us out with all of that.
Is there a Google form to book or reserve training, or should they just email you directly?
Just email us directly for now, but we do have a website that's the BC Muslim Association has built for us. We are trying to build it right now. Yes, I do have a template. Well, we have a checklist. I don't know, like we can build a template if you'd like, but we do have a checklist of, oh yeah, these are the most important things, and these are all free resources. We'll provide them to you, and you can provide them however you want. Okay.
For sure, it's hard to do a template, I could imagine, because every space looks so different, but a checklist would be really, really helpful. Yeah, if anybody wanted to unmute, you can use the raise your hand feature and we can call upon you to unmute and you can ask your question. In the meantime, while that's happening, I actually have a question. Like I said, I used to work myself in one of the larger schools in Alberta. And something like what happened in San Diego is something that's always been on our mind as admin. So after an event like this in San Diego, some of the schools don't have any security guards, right? Is it a fair thing to ask your society for security to be placed there for like 2 weeks? I remember I've been Vitra trained myself, and they say that usually a copycat would do something within the 2 week mark. Is that something that you would recommend, Brother Yunus?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think you should look, to be honest with you, I mean, I feel anything is better than nothing, right? Something's better than nothing. I think just if that's the measure you're going to take, go for it. I The problem is with this is that there is a tendency with hiring security guards that, okay, whatever, we've done it, it's all good now, right? But what we're trying to do with Salam is that we are actually trying to build capacity for everybody, right? We want everybody to understand that, hey, during an emergency, the security guard might be in the bathroom and the other person might be like on the other side of the building and not know what's going on, right? We want to build capacity so everybody actually can play that role. And you have to understand that don't be afraid of taking action, even if you don't know anything. A lot of times when it's something this bad, it's better to do something rather than nothing.
That makes sense. Yeah, because in our building that I was in before, it was one security guard, massive building. And yeah, they could be anywhere at the time that something could happen.
Yeah.
What time did you have to go again, Brother Eunice?
Um, I got time for one more question.
One more question. So,
I'm,
assuming
I'm
you
pretty sure my
provide,
professor is going to be really bad, but whatever, it's okay. So,
assuming you provide Masajid and Musallas the training in Toronto, how long does a session last?
I mean, we have several trainings. We can do anything from, I mean, to be honest with you, we customize it. Like if you have 20 minutes, we'll do it 20 minutes, right? But uh, generally it's about 30 to 90 minutes, depending on what you want to cover, right? If you just want to go, all right, let's bring in the AR-15 and the guns and let's do drills, we'll do that, and we'll get everybody to carry out their brothers, right? And then we also do like those drills. We try to focus on the drills these days, not the PowerPoint so much. Yes, we can provide training in the US. Brother Vikar from MNN, I believe, he has a question about
Can security
can
guards
security
carry
guards
weapons?
pray carry weapons? And by the way, Brother Vikar is his MNN team is one of the best teams in the whole like one of
Mashallah.
the best organized security teams in Canada for masjids, right? So unfortunately, right, security guards are pretty limited. So when it comes to firearms, firearms are generally not allowed unless you're protecting gold, silver, or you're a police officer or military, right? But however, I believe I'm not sure about shields and batons. Batons are so, for example, Canada's Wonderland, the guards in Canada's Wonderland do carry, but some of them do carry batons, but you're only supposed to take that out if somebody has like a knife or something, right? So those are some things you can work around with. Pepper spray or something would be also not allowed. Generally, you can carry dog spray, right? Which is the same thing. Uh, However, like that's the problem, right? All these things are very, very like legally they're very kind of weird territory, right? Generally speaking, there's also liability if you are saying that you're a security guard and you're volunteering. So we like to recommend if you're trying to set up your own security team, you call it a safety team, risk management, something else, right? Because sometimes there's some liability involved. So we just don't want anybody to get in trouble for what like for the wrong reason.
For sure. Thank you. So I believe that's all the time you have with us, and you needed to go back. And those are all the questions that we have in the chat. We thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and for enlightening us with all this information. It is heavy, but like you said, it's better to know and do something than to do nothing. Jazakallah alf khair, Brother Yunus, and inshallah we'll probably continue to be in communication with you, as it looks like a lot of people want some training. Jazakallah khair.
And best of luck. And Sister Aisha's stuff is really good. So please listen to that because so we help most of the grants, but um uh, a lot of times the grant people aren't so aware of the grant process.
Yeah,
We've been like it's very important for you to get that education because then you're getting the money to be able to invest in security infrastructure, right? We also have a partnership with Dean Support Services to help people get wheelchair accessibility access grants, right? And yes, you can have a copy of the presentation. That's fine. Do you provide training in the US? Yes, absolutely. We have done a couple in the United States so far. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, Jazakallah, I really do have to leave now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. And so, just like Brother Yunus said, here's up our next guest speaker that's going to be with us today is Sister Aisha, and she's got a wealth of knowledge and information for us. So, she's going to be speaking about accessing and applying for these security grants that he was just talking about, Brother Yunus, as well as building meaningful partnerships with the local affected officials, with the local elected officials, excuse me, and the police services to strengthen safety and preparedness within our communities. Aisha Haja is actually the founder and principal consultant at Red Tree Strategic Consulting, where she has supported over hundreds of organizations across Canada, securing funding and policy development. With her background as a former senior policy analyst in the provincial government, Aisha brings unmatched expertise in this area. She is also the director of partnership at, I don't know how to say this, at Gibraltar. I'm so sorry, Aisha. Leadership Academy, and a former professor at Seneca College, demonstrating her commitment to community leadership and education. Without further ado, Sister Aisha, it is over to you.
Alaikum, Sister Nesma. Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khairan, everyone, for taking the time to attend. Yeah, that was a really fascinating seminar. I've had his training, but not that kind of training. So that was really good. Let me just share my screen here. Um, um, Sister Nesma, can you see everything?
It is just
Or everyone else?
loading. There we go. Yeah, it is up and running.
Okay, perfect. All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Jazakallah khairan, everyone, and Isaac for organizing and doing all the legwork behind the scenes. I always am very grateful. I just wanted to really quickly begin with a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to begin with a sentiment of gratitude, knowing that we have the opportunity to gather on this land thanks to the generations of Indigenous people who have come to this land long before us, as our governments and institutions have a commitment to address our horrific past against Indigenous communities through actions identified as part of the Truth and Reconciliation. It would be hypocritical of me to not recognize how colonialism is not a thing of the past. While we claim and commit to caring about marginalized communities, we are still witnessing colonialism in action through ongoing repression of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, not just in Canada, but across the world, including Palestine, Congo, Sudan, etc. And I'm here again today to remind us all, we hear a lot of these land acknowledgements, but it's very important that as we think of respecting Indigenous communities through land acknowledgements, we do have to put our acknowledgement into practice by speaking up for every single Indigenous community. And this work in grants, even the security training that we did, is just a means by which we want to educate and empower marginalized communities to tackle the system strategically through programs and services, inshallah. All right, so my goal for today really, and my expertise obviously is grants more broadly, but just given the context of what happened, I don't have enough time to give you a full overview of grants and what's possible. There is a lot, but I'll share some resources at the end. For now, the focus for today is really on, I just want to highlight some security funding, and as Brother Yunus was talking about, security and fencing and all, and security guards, for example. That's really what I wanted to highlight because there are funding opportunities available. And I can't tell you how many times, no matter how many times I share it, a lot of people are like, we didn't know about it. So that's really what I want to focus on. And then from that, I also want to talk a little bit, about partnerships and building partnerships. So, how do you build those partnerships with local politicians? And I'm not talking about super, I don't want to say superficial, but I'm not talking about after an incident happens, you have an MP or a politician who wants to come visit the mosque and say a few words. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really leveraging those relationships to work to our advantage so that we can tackle Islamophobia in a more meaningful way. Because what happened in the US, unfortunately, it's not something foreign to us Canadians. Like we had the Quebec mosque shooting, our London family, and my kids go to an Islamic school. The school is connected to the Masajid, so it's it hits very close to home every time. So I really want us to sort of have those conversations, and then again, how to engage with your police service beyond just, the at face value where they come and do stuff. So I really want to highlight that, inshallah. Okay, so in terms of accessing security funding, so I want to focus on two main grants that are security. Again, there's a lot that it could go on, but just in the interest of time and because of the focus, one of the biggest ones that I want everybody to consider, it's open right now, is called the Canada Community Security Program. So it's a CCSP. And with this grant, they actually give you $5 million per project. 70% of the cost. So the way it works is it's a shared funding. So the government will put in 70% and then you have to put in 30%. Mosques qualify, Islamic schools qualify, even summer camps. Like I did a review of it, obviously before I presented on this as well. So if you have summer camps that you're doing, a lot of you guys do summer camps in the summer, you can apply for this funding. And there's literally a list of what they can approve. It's basically funding designed to support communities at risk of hate-motivated crime. So that essentially means which communities are at risk. We know that Islamophobia is real, it's happening, right? So our community is at risk to enhance physical security at their gathering places. So you can apply for funding for exactly like the stuff Brother Yunus talked about, surveillance systems, even with what do they call, the radio system, access control, lighting, fencing, right? That's a big one, like fencing, alarm, security assessment and training. That's the reason I asked Brother Yunus if there was a cost to that. Planning, development of security plans, emergency and contingent plans. Again, this is a high-level summary, but I would encourage all of you to look into this program. Again, it's currently open right now. I will share this as a PDF version so that you can get more information, but this is a very important grant that I think everyone should, if you haven't already, it's something to explore. It's a minimum of 6 months time between the time of your application and the start of the project. Okay, so it does take time. So grants usually they take about 6 months for approval, anyways. So it does take a bit of time. It is a bit tedious. Well, a lot of grants are, but with this particular one, you have to get a vendor quote. You have to submit some supporting documentation to show how your community is at risk. So all of that is outlined in further detail in the application itself. So I want you guys to, again, if you haven't already explored this, this is one that everybody, I know we have folks across Canada. This is a federal grant. So what that means is it's applicable to anybody across Canada. So you don't have to be, it's not that, oh, if you're in Ontario or Edmonton, you can't apply. It applies to everybody. Okay, and the max is $5 million per project. The other grant that I wanted to talk about is the Ontario Anti-Hate Security and Prevention Grant. There should be a comparable. Sorry, I wasn't able to check who was attending previously, so I didn't do. I'm based in Ontario, so I didn't go and research Edmonton and other regions. But if you do Google at a provincial level, I'm sure there's something comparable. So for those of you in Ontario, there's the Ontario Anti-Hate Security and Prevention Grant. I've gone this for Gibraltar Leadership Academy, which is my husband's school, and we've actually gone, and this one is a relatively straightforward one. The very first application is a bit longer, but after that, it's a basic, like you just have to answer a few questions, and they assess based on whatever your revenue model is. And you can get funding for cameras, alarms, lighting, security guards. You can get funding for training for this as well. I've been able to get this for Gibraltar, I want to say at least 2 to 3 years now. And I teach a grant writing course, and I've had other organizations also access this. Again, and this is one of those ones where if you need access to a security guard, this will cover that, right? You'll get funding. And it doesn't matter if you have multiple campus locations, you can apply for the multiple campus locations as well. You just have to note that in the application. So have a look. Again, this is closed right now, but the reason I'm sharing this, and I talk about this in my grants course, is just because it's closed now doesn't mean that it's not going to open again. Majority of the times, a lot of these grants, they do open different versions of it, especially after, I mean, it's unfortunate, but a lot of the times when there is an incident in the community, the government is ready to, they want to put money towards it and say, okay, we have to show that we're taking action. And so what can we do? So you'll find, I think after the London Mosque, our family, they did have some Islamophobia project funding that came out, and we got funding for that as well. So you just have to make sure you keep looking. Again, if you're in another province, please look up provincially what's available in your region. If you need support, you can reach out, and I'll be happy to assist you. The last grant I want you guys to look at, again, I can't, you guys are all from different regions, so there is no way for me to research every single municipal grant, but look up your municipal level city grant. So federal is Canada, provincial is your province that you're in, and then municipal is your city. So Kingston, Hamilton, Woodstock, I want you to Google your city, and you should be able to find what city-specific funding there is. So that means that there's funding specifically just for your region. So one example is City of Toronto. And honestly, I just found this last night when I was trying to just, get some examples going. So City of Toronto, I didn't know this. It has a hostile vehicle mitigation grant, which is to serve communities at risk of hate-motivated crimes, and organizations can receive up to $100K in funding to assign, design, and install hostile vehicle mitigation reinforcements. So reinforced walls, crash-rated bollards. I had to Google that. So that's basically those big, in parking lots. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. They're like those brick poles, mini poles kind of thing. So yeah, to be honest, again, I do this for a living, right? And I didn't even know this was a thing that existed, but that just goes to show that there is funding at every single level. And a lot of the times people miss out, and they don't consider, like, they'll just look at Canada and they'll look at their province. The biggest one where I find people really miss out is municipal level. So that's a very important one to look into. And I'll give you guys one example for us for, I think a couple of months back, or was it last year? We had an incident where in our community where somebody, I think they were about to light up somebody's hijab or something like that. I remember they pulled off her hijab, and it was a whole thing. And I reached out to the city, and the local city actually covered police for us, like paid patrol police. So it ended up costing, I think, $1,000, but they covered it for us because we had Eid prayers coming up, and I reached out to them. And I said, hey, our community is really shaken up because this incident is literally down the street, and we have prayers coming up, and we have Eid prayers, and we don't have, we don't have the funding right now to hire like police cruisers to come out and patrol our area and like be on site for the event. And so the city was able to give us funding to cover that. So that's just an example for you guys in terms of how much like there is a lot of potential at the city level, which we just a lot of the times miss out on. I'll go through the presentation in full, and then I'll take questions at the end if that's okay with everyone. Unless you have a burning question, then feel free to, Nesma can unmute whoever. Okay, I want to move on to just on that note, I want to move on to building relationships with local politicians. So the one thing to keep in mind is, and I find that within the Muslim community, I think it's gone better since like maybe a year or two now, where we have to remember that one of the primary roles of local politicians is to respond to and address the concerns and needs of the constituents in your riding, right? So we elected them, and they are part of their job description is to address and meet and address concerns of your constituents, right? So we don't have to be how should I say this? We don't have to be uber grateful, like, oh my God, you guys came out. Thank you so much. Sure, be grateful. You can show gratitude, right? That they're taking time out, but this is part of their job. So I want us to change our mind shift a little bit to, I find that in the community, we're just we just overdo ourselves with politicians. You just kind of have to remember that this is part of their job, and part of their job is to address our needs and our concerns, right? We put them in power. So they report to us in one way, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. Again, I'm not saying become arrogant and be all like, oh, you have this job because of me, which technically kind of they do, but you want to have that. I think we need to just get back to that and not be so obsessed with politicians. Let's put it that way. So why are elected? So all that to say, elected officials are your allies, right? Depending on who it is. Either way, regardless, whoever is in power, at the end of the day, you should be meeting with every single one of them. And like I said, your city councilor is your frontline ally for local safety. And they can advocate for city grants for you. So the example was that hotline, not hotline, the driving mitigation Toronto grant that I just told you about. They might even connect you with other municipal grants. They can request increased police attention in your ward. So just to give you an example, so for GLA, we actually do community Eid prayers. And when this incident happened, I emailed all of our elected officials at all levels of government for all of our campuses. And the city, I emailed our city councilor and I said, we have Eid prayers coming up again, just in light of what happened in San Diego. People are, really nervous. Can we get funding? Are you guys able to cover the cost for the police? Because you guys did it the last time. And he's like, sure, let me see what the city can do. So he connected me to the city. And then the city person sent an email to the chief of head sergeant of the Durham Police region in our area. And she had sent him an email saying, hey, are you able to, this is the situation. Do you guys have funding? Are you guys able to cover the cost at that kind of thing and increase patrol and that kind of thing? So anyways, he responded back saying, we are increasing patrol in the area. And that they would be happy to drop by. They just don't know if they have the budget to cover the cost to have a police cruiser there. But again, the point being that, all of that happened because I took initiative and I contacted my city councilor and I did all of this, right? Had I not done that, I would have just been like, okay, well, we're all feeling shaken up and we're going to have outdoor Eid prayers and we have no support, right? So very important. Again, in this situation, sure, I may not be able to get funding. They're still looking into it. They said the city will look into it. But the point is there is an added emphasis now. Okay, we're going to increase patrol in light of the situation. And we're also going to, if you invite us and you're okay with us, we'll actually drop by to your event. So I've, again, alerted our team that the cops might drop by, which is nice, right? Because you have police presence and that kind of thing. So very important for you to have those conversations with your city councilor as well. The other conversation is provincial. So you should be meeting with your member of provincial parliament. So that's your representative at the provincial level. So your voice at Queen's Park. So they can direct you on Ontario, that's the anti-hate security funding. They might advocate with, the federal counterpart as well on citizenship and multiculturalism and help navigate other provincial, or actually that's provincial as well, help navigate with provincial programs. I'll give you guys a really quick example. I think a year ago, I can't remember. Again, one of these incidents happens. I contacted our local MPP, and at the time, obviously, he didn't have any funding. But what he did tell me was that he'll have his assistant do some research for grants and share them with me. So he basically assigned his staff person to do basically what I do for a living, which is research grants. And he put together a very comprehensive document and sent it to me. Mind you, I knew of most of them, right? Because I work in this space, so I'm aware, and I worked in government. But the fact is that people don't know this, right? He assigned his staff member to follow up with me. Why? Because I'm his constituent. I reached out, right? We have a relationship, and he's like, yeah, I totally get it. Let me see what we can do, right? So even when they don't have funding right away, they will still support you in other ways that they can. And with this specific MPP, it's been good because he also, before, like, just as things are announced, he'll always reach out to me and say, hey, Aisha, we actually have this grant. I wanted to let you know, just a heads up, make sure you apply. Your MPP is also very important for those of you. Again, this is a side one, but Canada Summer Jobs is a big one. The final list of whoever the final grantees are, like people who are successful with the grants, the final list goes to your MPP's office for final approval. Oh no, that's with your MP. Sorry, that's with the federal grant. And so for that one, my MP actually reached out and said, "Hey, actually, when I got the list, I didn't see your name on there." And so, I actually went back and pulled it up, and so that's how that happened. Again, all that to say, if my application sucked, obviously he would not have done that, right? But something had happened with the system where we were like, I think we did a paper application or something like that. But all that to say, that's one of the grants where it goes to your MP for final approval, which is why, again, having these relationships is very important. I'm not saying that just because you know them, just because you meet them, that, they know you, that they're going to give you funding and that kind of thing. Of course not. You have to, put your best foot forward. But all of this adds up and sort of works to your advantage, inshallah. So yeah, moving on to the MP, the same thing. Moving on to so MPP, they can do the same, I believe, for the comparable for the Ontario. We have Ontario summer jobs here. That's a little bit harder to get, not harder, but they're very specific, which is why I only applied for them once. But same thing, if you meet with your MPP, let them know, they'll give you a heads up and share that information with you. So your member of parliament, again, they can connect you with the CCSP, so that's federal grants. They can raise issues for you in parliament. So, if you have advocacy concerns that you want to bring up, my MP probably knows my name by now with all of the emails I've spammed him with. And excuse me, they can also amplify your community security needs, right? So again, all that to say that these relationships are very important. I'm not saying go meet with them every other day. Like, I would say reach out every few months or so. You can share an update. If you have a newsletter you want to share, you can do that. But politicians, again, if they don't have funding, they can refer you to appropriate supports and services. And one thing I can tell you, having worked in government, is when something happens, if they want to find money, they will find money. Okay, so if there's an emergency, something happened, they will find money, they will find ways to support you. You just have to, again, push, right? But we have to do our part in willing to push and have these conversations. If you're not having these conversations, then you can't sit and complain and say, well, nobody's doing anything. Well, what did we do to put our best foot forward, right? So yeah, just wanted to highlight that. I covered everything there. So after an Islamophobic incident, what do you do? So these are the things I wanted to highlight. And I've done this for our organization as well. Contact all of your counselors, your MP, your MPP, and MP immediately. If some of you have not contacted all levels of government after the San Diego shooting, you can still do it now. Just say, and I'm happy if folks are interested. I'm happy to share a template that I did, and I can share that with you guys, and you can modify it as you see fit. And you'll see in some of them, I did express for once where I have a relationship and they didn't respond. I had ChatGPT sort of make it a little bit not angry, not super angry, but it was very firm, where I did say in the email, right? And I feel like, again, we're very hesitant in being straightforward. So I did for two of my MPs, I did say, I'm very disappointed that, you guys haven't taken initiative and reached out to our communities, just given what happened. And for anyone who thinks, well, that was in the US, the issue, it's not that I think the issue for me is that it's not that it's in the US, it's that it's so close to home, right? And I don't know if anybody saw, but NCCM actually did a post where they actually shared that the folks who did the San Diego mosque, who committed the crimes, they did reference I forget which, I think it's the Quebec mosque shooting, don't quote me if I'm wrong, but they did reference Canadian like terrorists who committed crimes here, against the Muslim community, right? So it's all linked. It's not that just because it happened there, it's not going to impact us here. It's all a very real reality. And I can tell you from the responses that I've gotten from the officials, they've been like, yeah, we're really we're really sorry this happened, blah blah, like the usual stuff. But I think it's very important for us to start being a little bit more firm and stop being so, oh, we're so grateful that you issued a statement. No, no, like where is your statement? Like this is basic, right? So again, if you haven't done that, it's not late. I still think you should make an effort and go ahead and send those emails. And just so you know, even if there are some for one of our campuses, I haven't really had time to actually meet with our MP. So this was one of my second or third emails to them, and I basically said, we haven't met formally, but I wanted to reach out just because of this thing happened in our community. So don't ever feel like it's too late or that you don't have a relationship. It's never too late to have those conversations. Again, when you send these emails, you can talk about that and you can ask about emergency or priority funding. So that's exactly what I did, right? And one of the things that I highlighted was, we're always looking for funding just in light of the situation. We're looking for youth funding. We're looking for community supports for organizations. I'm looking for, I even asked them, so for the city, I asked about, we have our Eid purse coming up. I asked if they have funding for us to cover the cost of police officers to be on site. So we're still, again, they're working on that. But that's an important piece. You can use these emails as an opportunity to highlight what issues, like where areas of funding are. And you can also request a meeting. So for the ones where I don't have an established relationship, I did use this as an opportunity to say, I'd love to have a conversation as well, to build some long-term relationships of information and that kind of thing. The last thing I was going to say, I have a note there, is when you do have, it's important, and unfortunately, I'm sure everyone has experiences of some form of Islamophobia. I would document those and keep them on file so that when you meet with them, right, you can say this is a very big reality. And it doesn't have to be that, it has to, unfortunately, it doesn't have to like take lives for it to be important enough to mention. Like, for example, for us, I remember we had an incident not too long ago where we had our students out for Terry Fox and somebody had yelled racial slurs at one of our students. My husband and his colleagues had gone to do a site visit at a venue, and I think somebody made a gun hand or something, like it was and they got cops involved and that kind of thing. So I've used those as well to sort of highlight, look, this is a reality that we're going through. And I've also used those narratives when we're applying for funding specifically related to Islamophobia, because there's a lot more now of community related funding that's coming out. So I've been able to leverage that information, because in all of these applications, they ask, tell us about your experience with Islamophobia. Again, doesn't have to be data, like evidence-based. It has to be evidence-based, but not research-based. It can be your qualitative experiences as well. So important to document all of that information. All right, engaging with your police services. So you want to build, again, proactive relationships with them. Same thing here. How do you reach out to them? So call your local emergency, non-emergency line. Again, just Google it. Majority of departments now, police departments have, at least in Ontario anyway, I'm pretty sure it's the case across in the other regions. And I'd love to hear back from folks from Edmonton and Ottawa if you have the same experience. A lot of them do have equity and inclusion or community and engagement or diversity, hate crimes unit, right? So make sure you meet with them and have a conversation. We had one, I think, not too long ago where they were interested in sort of building a long-term partnership to tackle, these issues. So these offices are established to tackle these issues. So, leverage them and have conversations with them. A lot of them also have community liaisons officer. Toronto Police Services up until recently, had Muslim liaison officers as well. So they were my point of contact whenever I had a grant and I needed to partner with Toronto Police. There's some issues here right now in Toronto. So I don't think those roles have been replaced. But again, keep an eye out for those and have conversations with them. When an incident happens, increase patrol in those areas. So some of our staff in all of the campuses actually did was they called up the non-emergency line and they said, in light of San Diego, can you increase patrol? And they were like, yeah, we're on it. There's an equity something, I forget the term, but in that Durham region, he actually said they've already sent out an email to all of the Muslim community and that they are increasing patrol, right? And you can also request, again, extra security presence at events. Again, this doesn't cost if they're just dropping by for a bit, right? Which is what the offer was for us, that they couldn't cover the cost to have a police cruiser, but if they're okay, if our community is okay with it, then they'd love to drop by, right? So we're doing that, and then ask them what security support programs exist. So this is a new one that somebody shared with me as well, and I looked it up. Toronto Police Officers also offers free training on lockdown and threat assessment. And I didn't know this until someone mentioned it to me, and then I looked it up myself. So look up your local police and ask them when you contact the Equity and Diversity Office, Hate Crimes Unit, whoever it is, ask them what kind of programs and services that they have. The Toronto Police one, it's absolutely free, where they actually come, they do the assessment for you, they give you training and that kind of thing. So have those conversations with them. And then the last piece is to continue the conversation. So connect with your local police department at least, I would say at least once in 4 months. The reason this is important is because the partnership is very important. Nowadays, there are quite a few grants that come out, especially when it comes to tackling, hate crimes and that kind of thing. And it's happened with us as well, where alhamdulillah, we've been successful. We got like 40K in funding for, I can't remember what the grant was, but it was basically to tackle Islamophobia. But one of the requirements was to partner with police. And for a grant that I recently worked on, it was I had to get a letter of support from a police department. And I actually was on having a conversation with Toronto Police, and he actually told me, like, when it comes to these letters, he's like, we prioritize organizations who we haven't established relationships with, not people who are randomly coming to us just for the sake of the grant. Now you might ask, well, Aisha, if that's what they're saying, how am I supposed to build a relationship? So don't just build it. If that happens, if you find like yourself in a situation where you reach out to them and they say, well, we don't have an established relationship, and that's what, we're prioritizing those folks, then you can say, okay, no problem. Can we actually have a conversation? We'd love to build a partnership with you to see how we can work together, right? So that can be your starting point. But I can tell you, these relationships are very important, especially when you are looking for funding beyond just security. There's lots of other funding opportunities that come up. And more now, there's a big emphasis on partnership with different organizations and police services. I want to say just in the last year, I did 2 applications where I had to show I'm connecting with the police department and I have to have a letter of support from the police. The last thing I wanted to wrap up with here is, so regional police programs and services. Again, like I've said, look up each of the different regions. Again, I wasn't sure who was attending, so you guys can do this within your own area. So Toronto Police has, again, like I said, the lockdown, they have a hate crime unit, they have a community partnerships and engagement unit. Peel Regional Police, I know there are some folks here from Mississauga. So there's free courses and seminars. I was fascinated by this. So they have a Cyber Academy, which is a 4-week program that includes topics like combating hate and safe online practices. There's a community liaison and neighborhood policing equity inclusion unit. So they provide cultural awareness to community engagement and outreach. Again, I would call them and have a conversation. I just did a brief research before the presentation just so I could give you guys an idea of what's out there. York Regional Police has a diversity, equity, and inclusion bureau. They have a hate crime prevention unit. And then all of them, to have these conversations, I would reach out to the non-emergency line and, get conversations going that way and see what they have available, right? Yes, part of it, I know some people might be like, well, Aisha, they're just doing it because we're in the season of DEI and, yeah, totally, right? I've worked in government, so I know what that's all about. But at the same time, it exists. People are getting paid to do these positions. There's funding available. So we kind of have to, work with the system, see what's available, and take those things to our advantage, inshallah. Your next 3 steps that I hope you'll consider is apply for a CCSP today, prep for other funding opportunities, call your elected officials, call your police services, right? There was a conversation where someone said, yeah, we're always so reactive. I agree. These kinds of incidents remind us, even this webinar is reactive in that, okay, we need to do something, but it's reactive to be proactive, right? So that we are not in a situation where, inshallah, this doesn't happen again. But if it does, we can say, hey, since the last time we actually did X, Y, Z, and this is how we're better funded and better supported. And these are the changes that we've made, right? So I'm hoping really that that's what our takeaway is. The last thing I did want to mention is if you guys are interested, I did just recently run a webinar on training on how to use AI effectively to research grants faster. So again, these are paid services. So if you're interested, we can hop offline. We can have a conversation offline. So that's an AI training. There's another grant writing course that I teach. It's starting on June 13th. So this is one where I have over 100 organizations take the course. So again, today I just talked to you about two security funding programs, and I didn't go through how you apply, what you need to do, all that kind of stuff. So this is a 5-week grant writing course. It basically covers from the very basics on how do you research grants, where do you go to find information, what are the funding priorities, how to position your program as an organization, importance on partnership development. You review successful grant applications, work on your own application, and build through partnerships through a group coaching and one-on-one session. So this is the one I launched this just to give you some background. I used to work in government, then and I consult as well. And in my time consulting with organizations, I would be developing the programs with them because I have policy and program experience. What I found was a lot of organizations don't have that expertise on, okay, how do I build successful programs that not only fit the funders' priorities, but also my organizational priorities? And how do I do that without compromising, my identity, for lack of a better word? And how do I get successful, right? I had somebody who hired somebody and they paid a ridiculous amount of money. They researched 50 grants and they got like 3 grants. And I'm like, okay, well, you're copy and pasting every single application. Number one, that's why you're not getting the grant. Number two, 50 does not make sense. Why would you apply for 50, right? You kind of need to strategically prioritize. So, anyways, if you're interested, I will share more information online. And I think offline, I'm also going to be working with ISAC to see, what else we can provide for Islamic schools. But if you have any questions, you can reach out. Inshallah, at the end, I'll follow up with ISAC and I'll share a PDF version of this presentation. And so you'll have access to that. And yeah, I think that's it. I can take any questions now.
Oh, Sister Aisha, that was a lot of information.
That was my speed version. Speed version.
I giggle at the beginning because you're like, I've shared this so many times. I'm like, this is news to me.
Oh, you never. Okay, see, there you go. Okay, alhamdulillah, I'm glad.
Sending to all of my friends here in Calgary. I'm like, you guys need this grant. You guys need this thing. You should.
No, honestly, it's one of those things where it's unless you know about it, right? And when I used to work in government, that was the thing. So I used to work in the Indigenous field, and it was always the same suspect of Indigenous organizations that used to get the funding. So my husband is one of the co-founders of Gibraltar Leadership Academy, which is a school here. And I remember I'm like, okay, wait, so we have this problem with the Indigenous communities. And, I used to have those conversations. And then I would look at these grants and I'm like, where are the Muslims at? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like and then the Muslims who knew about it didn't know how to apply for it, or the ones that didn't know how to apply for it, didn't know how to develop programs, like that knowledge was missing. Or a lot of them, which is majority of the case till now, is they just don't know where they are and where to find them, right? So it's just about learning. Once you learn that, then inshallah, it's like smooth sailing. Yeah.
And even like you said with, we have this thought about politicians and how they're on a pedestal and they're untouchable when really they're just another human being that we voted in. So it's okay to ask them to do their jobs.
Yeah.
But when you hear the word grant, it comes with a dun dun dun.
Yeah.
This is going to take so much time. You don't know what you're writing half the time. And there's just so much that goes with it. So super, super helpful and informative. I just put in her email right here, and I wrote down there again. So yeah, the number one question was, how can we reach you? We have allowed everyone to unmute their mic if they would like to. So if you want to raise your hand and ask a question through using the mic, you're more than welcome to raise your hand. And if you're shy, you could put it in the chat as well, and we can answer your question that way. But yeah, as someone raises their hand here, puts a question in the chat box.
Oh, someone said, wasn't that incident? Yeah, that was an incident at a public library in Ajax, but it was in our area, and the person actually who was impacted was one of our students' mom. But regardless, it was in our community, right? So even the fact that the fact that I was a community member was obviously very disheartening. But that's when situations like these happen, people are like, politicians are looking to respond. Oh, that's awesome. Brother Muhammad shared Alberta Security Infrastructure Program. Yeah. What template am I sharing? Please share the template. Did I talk about a template?
A template for the emails, yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry. Clearly, mom brain going crazy. Okay, I will send a template out.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
and the one thing I wanted to share was I had in the presentation, I don't know where it was if you guys are inviting like, invite your politicians to come to your community, you can totally do that. Just to meet your community. My advice would be to not make it a photo op. And the reason I say this is because then they will use it as an opportunity for a PR campaign. And then they're going to post it online, and then it just becomes a social thing. So I would say, especially in these kinds of situations, and I want to say since October, we won't name the year. I've been very cognizant of, the way politicians show up and that kind of thing. So nothing, I would say invite them to meet your community, invite them to meet your, congregants or your, whoever it is. But I would add the caveat that please come, but we don't want pictures. We don't want it to become a photo op. I would also recommend, my personal recommendation is to not invite them on like, Eid prayers and Jummah prayers because that's our personal whatever, right? They don't need the mic, right? We don't need to give them the mic every time they want it. So I think there's a question. I'm gonna
yeah,
stop.
Brother Uthman, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Jazakumullah khair, sister, for this nice presentation. Appreciate it. I want just to let you know about this. I'm one of the directors at Islamic Institute of Airdrie. So we are in Airdrie, Alberta,
Well, awesome.
and we have joined recently. Like we are a new administration in the mosque, so we are running the local mosque, and we got an opportunity to join a program, which is a new program in Alberta. It's called Power Plus. So this Power Plus is a program from the government in Alberta. I think a lot of people, they don't know about it because it's a pilot project from the provincial police to protect the worship places. So we are proud to be the second worship place to join the program. So the first one, I think, is in an area called Ponoco, a local church joined. Then we are the second one. So this program is designed to be a fast response or reaction to any incidents like shooting or anything in the mosque. So they asked us like simple information to sign up for this one, for this program, is to they will have the blueprint of the location, the area, and where is the exits and how, what's the size of the place. And then they will sign us up for this. In case of any shooting or emergency, they will activate this themselves immediately, and they will have direct contact with the local police, and the local police can respond immediately in few minutes. So they will know the place, they will know the location, they will not be just surprised by what's happening or where are we going. No, they know the area. So I'm hoping that we'll not use this in real life, but this is a new program that we joined as a small center, small mosque in Alberta. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but it's something that, in the future, I think other worship places and the mosque should be the first to join if this program is really successful and people like it. Then it will be a good thing to protect our mosques, inshallah, and our congregation. Jazakallah khair.
No.
Yak, inshallah, Brother Uthman, that was very, very helpful. There's quite a few Alberta folks here today. Just to confirm, it's called Power Plus?
Yes.
Okay, I just put it in the chat because some people were asking. Thank you very much for sharing that. Go ahead, Sister Aisha.
No, I was just gonna say yes, Jazakallah khair, Brother Uthman. And this is exactly so for everyone who's not in Alberta, I also wrote it down. This is a great way to actually contact whenever you meet your local MP, MPP, which I know everybody's gonna do here, right? You can have a conversation and say, hey, I know I've heard Alberta launched a similar program. and we want to have something similar. Can you share some information? Maybe Brother Uthman, if you can, or I'll probably Google it after. But that's excellent, right? The more we, again, information sharing, that's another big gap in our community. But if we start sharing, even across provinces, what's happening in your jurisdiction, what's happening in your jurisdiction, and I can tell you in government, we used to have, I forget what it's called because I used to work, I think it's been 7 years now since I left, but we used to have intra, I forgot the term, but provincial tables. We used to have provincial tables where we would work with other provinces and meet with other provinces. So for me, I used to meet with them on like Indigenous issues, right, from other provinces and the work that they're doing. So the same, I'm sure, is applicable to tackling hate, and especially given how much it is on the rise. So very important. Again, if you hear of somebody else in another community doing something and it's interesting, I would encourage you to follow up. But yeah, Jazakallah khair, Brother Uthman. I hadn't heard about it, but I will definitely look into it. And congratulations to you guys on being the
Thank you
second
very much.
class.
وإياكم جزاك الله خير. Can I ask a question now, sister? Like in a small Islamic center or a small mosque, you said that grant is like up to 5 million. So 5 million is too much for us. So is it up to 5 million or
Yeah, so the way grants work is they'll usually tell, have you applied for grants ever before or not really?
no?
Okay.
No.
So when they say that it's max 5 million, usually they'll have a budget say this. So for this grant, organizations can get up to 5 million. So you can get a max of up to 5 million. But when you actually do your application, what you actually have to do, you have to give a budget breakdown. So again, we go through all this in the course, which is why I was like really, highlighting it. But basically what you do is it's not like you put a blanket. If there's an application that says 5 million, okay, I'm going to put an application for 5 million. You actually have to provide a quote. You have to say what you're going to use the money for. You have to provide a budget breakdown, and then they'll give you funding based on that. If you get a lot of the times, either you get approved for the full or they might give you partial amount. So I had a grant where the total was, I think it was like 40K. So I actually developed a budget where it was like, okay, I have to break it down. Okay, 20K is going to be for project coordinator, 20K, the 15K was going to be for graphic, and 10K was going to be for support coordination or whatever. Again, I'm making stuff up, but whenever you apply for grants, you actually do have to give a full breakdown. They're not just going to give you the full amount. But yeah, long story short, if they say full 5 million, it doesn't mean you're going to get the full. I've also had situations where I've had organizations apply for grant. One organization, it was a masjid, they applied for Islamic Heritage Month funding. So we put an application for 40K. Again, they gave a full budget, but because of funding limitations, they got approved for 27,000. So then we worked their budget based on that.
Awesome. It is technically 8:30 Eastern Standard, 6:30 Mountain Standard. Do you have time for maybe one more question if there's one burning question left out there?
Sure.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else, if you want to go raise your hand or put it in the chat? I'm really good at pausing. I'm an online principal, so I'm like,
there you go, you're pro at it.
got the pause down here. Yeah. Okay, I think we're good here. So I want to take another minute to thank you so much, Sister Aisha, for all of that information. It was super duper helpful. So one last question here from Sister Camilla. How much would it cost to hire someone to write a grant?
So that really depends on who you hire. So some people do a percentage, which is they'll say, they'll do the application and they'll tell you, okay, if you get the grant, you give us 7%, 8%. I historically have never done that, just because I don't know, when I was starting out, I was like, I don't know if this feels right, because technically, like, it's not like when you get the grant, you can take money out of the budget, right? When you get the money, it's very specific on what you can spend it on. So the organization would have to have money separately to pay you. So you can find people that way. I do an hourly rate. So if you have an application you want me to apply for, what I personally do is I'll give you, like, you tell me the application, then I'll go through it. I'll give you a quote based on the time it'll take me, because then I research, meet with you guys and that kind of thing. And then based on that. So I couldn't give you like a standard, to be honest. It really depends. It's like grant specific, but I've spent anywhere, like in the past, depending on the application, I've I'm trying to give you an idea. Maybe like $2,000. It's ranged up to 2,000, maybe 2,000, 3,000, depending. Again, it really depends on how long the application is, the budget. I would have to meet with you guys, develop the program and that kind of thing. But the return that you get, a lot of grants, if you think about it, and I know initially people are like, oh my God, it's a lot of money. But when you look at something simple like Canada Summer Jobs, which majority people get, you're looking at upwards of 40 to 50,000, 20 to 30,000, right? I would say instead of hiring, this is what I push for a lot of organizations, because again, I've consulted. You guys end up spending more money consulting versus if you actually learn the knowledge first. So the grant writing course is $1,000. But the benefit of that is then you learn organizationally how to develop your programs. That's a big thing that I found. So even that organization, the example that I gave you where they hired a consultant, the team was not involved in program development at all. And so it ended up being like they were spending way more than $1,000, right? And they didn't get any grants either. So you really need to understand, to be successful with grants, you need to understand how to develop the programming and that kind of thing, which is why I would suggest invest in a course, whether it be my course or anything else, invest in that knowledge and then apply and hire somebody. I'm telling you, you will save a lot of money in the long run. But yeah, I know I didn't answer your question, so I apologize.
So I absolutely echo that, Sister Aisha. It's grant writing can be intense, but if you have the capacity built within your team, then that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank Sister Aisha again for her time. She's busy. She's a mama. She's got babies waiting for her because I got to go to bed. And for everybody that took time out of their busy day as well to learn from this webinar and continue that amana that we have taken on as leaders and people that work with people's children, as well on behalf of ISAC and our partners, Red Tree Consulting, Justice for All Canada, Sound Vision Canada, and Toronto Muslims. We thank you for your time and dedication to this important work. One of the number one questions is, will you provide the recording? And it will be coming to you in your email for those of you that have registered in 48 hours, because it takes time for Zoom to be send that recording to us. And then last but not least, I would love to end with a dua. And of course, please stay connected with ISAC for any future events and initiatives. And don't ever hesitate to reach out with feedback or further questions. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك عملنا سوءا وظلمنا أنفسنا فاغفر لنا فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم. Thank you all. جزاكم الله خير and have a great night.